As many of you know, the next big title to come out is Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. This game is already much acclaimed, and most people in the RPG scene are looking forward to it a great deal. And I am too, in a sense, but unlike a lot of people, I'm probably not going to play it. And for me, Kingdom Come Deliverance, or for that matter, Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, is one of those amazing RPGs that I probably just can't get into. That's what I want to talk about today. You see, there exists a plethora of games that I consider very good based on all the reports, based on observing people playing it, etc., that I respect beyond all measure, games that I think are just very, very high quality, but ultimately are probably not for me. There are many examples of this, of course. You have Elden Ring, Dark Souls, those are not really my type of games. Games such as Space Marine 2, which by all accounts is an incredible game. And even games like Marvel Rivals, which recently burst out onto the scene, which by all accounts, again, is very, very good. But at the end of the day, none of these games are really my genre. But then you have the nitty-gritty details of what a genre is and what a genre means to you. Because if you look at Kingdom Come Deliverance, or Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, I would say it sort of is my genre. I like medieval settings a lot. In fact, the European Middle Ages are probably my favorite epoch in history, full stop. And as a student many winters ago, I spent a fair bit of time studying the Middle Ages. But even the European Middle Ages as a time period represents a pretty broad period of time, because the Middle Ages technically start around maybe 600 AD and end technically somewhere around 1500. And so you have almost 1,000 years to play with. Now, my interest in the Middle Ages was primarily in the early period of the Middle Ages. So roughly 600 to 1100, give or take. Nonetheless, late Middle Ages is an interesting period of time, and that is the time period in which Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 takes place. But the late European Middle Ages is nonetheless an interesting historical setting for me. Not as interesting as, say, the early Middle Ages or the Dark Ages as it used to be called, but still interesting. And you have swords and maces and axes and crossbows this time, and armor, and all the things that make the medieval period very interesting for a lot of people, including myself. So you might ask me, what's my problem with Kingdom Come Deliverance? I don't really have a problem. As you can see, I played a little bit, about 20 hours in total, and I might give it a go again at some point in time. But for me, the hook that I almost require, I won't say require because I'm not sure, but almost require, is some element of the fantastical, some element of magic, if you want to call it that, something that is just not the run-of-the-mill, something that is not reality-bound. And based on all the evidence, Kingdom Come Deliverance and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2 are historical RPGs. Epics, if you will, but historical RPGs that are set in a place that does not have these features of the fantastical, of the supernatural, of the magical. And I don't even need a lot of that. You know, in traditional fantasy settings, you have different levels of magic. You have low magic settings, you have medium magic settings, high magic settings. I would even go so far as to say that I prefer low magic settings. If you look at the bulk of work of Game of Thrones, prior to the show, mind you, the books, that is very much a low magic setting. But there exists nonetheless some degree of magic in the setting. And so, whilst I wouldn't go so far as to say it's a turn-off, the lack of the fantastical serves to attract points of interest in a game for me because I kind of need that. Now, there might be exceptions here. For example, if this game were set in the early Middle Ages, in, I don't know, the year 600, 700, 800, then I would find it very interesting to play, potentially. I'm not against realistic fiction, principally, and I'm not even against realistic RPGs. So a dream game, for me, would be something like a game set at the time just prior to Charlemagne, or something like that, in the Frankish Kingdom, or perhaps a game set in England at the time of Alfred the Great, or something along those lines. Something that would really tickle my interest because of my specific background in history. That said, I'm still theoretically open to the idea of playing Kingdom Come Deliverance and Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. And I really want to praise the efforts of the developers here, because I've seen what they've been doing, and they've made it very clear that this game is meant to be cool, fun, and enjoyable. Because, as many of you know, there are a lot of games these days, AAA games, whose sole intention is not to create a fun experience, to not entertain you, to not get you caught up in the story, but rather to preach, project, and ramble on about politics and what you should think and what you shouldn't think. That is anathema to me, as I am sure it is anathema to many of you. And the developers at Warhorse have given us literally no sign that this game is going to be anything like that. So I fully expect a fun experience. I fully expect an upgrade from Kingdom Come Deliverance. They've added new things, like I said, the crossbows. We know that an early form of firearms is in the game. And if I had to guess, there'll be other forms of combat that are somewhat new to differentiate it from Kingdom Come Deliverance, the predecessor. And I think it's totally fair to not like every RPG that's coming out. Now, people are different, obviously, and I know people that play literally every type of game in terms of genre, in terms of type, and that's absolutely fine, and I respect that. But there are also people like me, and like other people I happen to know, who like RPGs a lot. That is our primary principal genre that we play in terms of video games, but we like to play specific types of RPGs. I think setting is really crucial. A lot of people are inclined to underplay the value of setting in terms of making a game attractive. For example, the classic here, I think, is Baldur's Gate 3. Absolutely fantastic game. Most people agree with that. It is one of my favorites of all time. But I think for many people, myself included, one of the key components and factors that made this game so good for me was the simple fact that it took place in the Forgotten Realms. Now, for those of you who don't know, I got this channel off the ground talking about Forgotten Realms lore in the run-up to Baldur's Gate 3, which was helpful to the channel, obviously. But I had spent a long time playing D&D campaigns in the Forgotten Realms, reading tons of novels, and have basically been steeped in the Forgotten Realms since 1987. Now, there are other settings in D&D, and I think actually some of these settings are better than the Forgotten Realms, but in terms of lore, in terms of expansiveness, Forgotten Realms obviously takes the cake. And so I saw that and thought, wow, another game set in this amazing world. I can't wait to get into that. And that's true of a lot of settings. Conversely, you have a game such as Warhammer 40k Rogue Trader, which I think is a very good game, and I'm halfway through. I'm taking a break, an extended break, plan on getting back to it. But it takes place in the Warhammer 40k universe, which is an ultra-depressing, grim, dark, dystopian version of our own world that I don't quite fancy as much as other settings. And so that serves a bit as a detractor to me in terms of generating interest. And I'm sure a lot of that applies to you as well. So for example, another series that I acknowledge to be very good is the Red Dead Redemption series. And by observation and word of mouth from other people, it's clearly a good series. Red Dead Redemption 2 apparently is exceptionally good, and I can acknowledge that. But I have literally less than zero interest in the late 19th century American Wild West. It's just not an area, a time, an epoch that I find even remotely interesting in the slightest, and therefore that completely takes away from my interest in the game. We have to be in a position to acknowledge when games are good, even if they're not our cup of tea. Now, I'm still not entirely decided on Kingdom Come Deliverance 2. I'm sure the reviews will be pretty good. In fact, I've heard recently that War Studios, the developers of Kingdom Come Deliverance 2, are sending out review codes almost a month early, and that various people are going to get access to it, and that could be a sign, potentially, of confidence they have in their game. And they had already pushed back the release date from February something, like 11th to the 4th, which again tells me that they're reasonably confident about this title, all in all. Of course, none of this guarantees that the game will be good. We have to wait for the reviews, we have to wait to play it ourselves, and I will remain on the fence for a while, not because I am questioning the game's quality. I am, based on the evidence, assuming the game will be quite good, but rather for the reasons I've already enumerated, and the lack of magic, the lack of the fantastical, and even within a historical setting, it's a bit too modern for my taste. It sounds a bit ridiculous to say 15th century Bohemia is too modern, but yes, when I talk about the Middle Ages, which I love, I really don't like going much further than the 13th, maybe 14th century. But once you start going beyond that, you're entering the Renaissance period, then you enter early modern history and what have you, And it certainly remains an interesting period of time, certainly a lot more interesting than the American Wild West in the 19th century, which I have less than zero interest in. But my interest wanes a bit, and therefore I am, as I've said, on the fence. But I'm curious to hear what you have to say. Do leave a comment, let me know what you think. I know a ton of other RPG channels are really excited about this game, and they don't have my prejudice or bias towards the late Middle Ages or this period of time or the lack of magic, and I am sure they're going to talk about this game a lot, and I plan on listening to what they have to say. But for now, I just don't know. We'll have to see. But as always, if you like my content and you like my takes, you can like the video, leave a comment, share the video, subscribe to my channel. It's much appreciated as it really helps me out. And I will check you out next time. Take care.